What's up, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer from blueandgold.com with our beat writer, Tyler Horka, talking some Notre Dame football and a little bit of all things Notre Dame athletics in this video. Make sure you guys go ahead and hit the thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel if somehow you haven't yet. And again, like we say in all of our videos, $1 for 1 year of premium access over at blueandgold.com. Tyler, let's go ahead and get right into quarterback talk. I feel like in pretty much every video we do now, we talk about quarterbacks because it is the number one storyline by far this offseason. So, you spoke highly of Steve Angeli in your video with Ashton Pollard. I appreciate the shout out as well. Tell us what you saw from him.
I saw a big guy. I saw a guy that doesn't look like he should be in high school right now, going to a prom in a couple years or whatever high schoolers do these days. I saw a guy who looks like he could start college football games right now, and I know he's not going to because Notre Dame has a couple of guys ahead of him, and Tyler Buchner and Drew Pyne, who have kind of been waiting for that. Pyne longer than Buchner, but I saw a guy that is probably it's funny. Ron Powlus was pretty physically imposing as well. I think those are the two physically best looking quarterbacks that Notre Dame has on the roster right now. And obviously, you need to be more than a physical specimen to play quarterback at this level. But it's just really impressive to me that you've wrote about Angeli so often, and if he has all of these tools, accuracy, leadership, awareness, all of the things that make up a good quarterback, plus that size that I saw in that first practice that we got to watch about 30 minutes of last week, then yeah, maybe this guy will start college football games. If not for Notre Dame, obviously Notre Dame wants it to be for Notre Dame, but look, this guy's going to find a way to start college football games in his career. I have no doubt about that after seeing him for one practice.
Man, this is my favorite thing ever. Maybe other Notre Dame channels aren't there, probably aren't talking about as much Steve Angeli, but since I host a lot of these videos, it's hard for me not to want to bring him up because I said last week. What's
I
that,
made
Tyler?
you blush. You're blushing.
A little bit. I mean, look, I've said so many times, like, I think the media is going to be really impressed with him. They get to see him. He looks bigger than he's listed. Like, I think he's on signing day, he's listed at like 6'2", 210. But to me, he looks like 6'3 and a half, 220,
Yeah.
225. Like, he just looks bigger even than he's listed. So media doesn't get to see a ton of practice this spring. Actually, a little bit less than we were expecting, to be honest with you guys. 4 media viewings, and of course, that does not include the spring game, which everyone gets to view. So you guys did get to talk to the quarterbacks, being Pyne and Buchner on Saturday. Quick note, going back to Angeli, he enrolled early. That's why Tyler kind of made the prom comment. He could be going to prom in a couple months. A lot of seniors are still in high school. Angeli enrolled early. But again, going back to Saturday, you guys got to talk to Drew Pyne, Tyler Buchner, Tommy Rees. Any takeaways from your guys talking to those players and coaches and coach?
Yeah, I thought they were all really impressive. Tommy Rees was Tommy Rees. There's no question that he can't answer, even when he was asked about Brian Kelly. You guys can read that at blueandgold.com. He spoke pretty candidly, and he said, "Look, I don't think I'm going to give you the answer that everyone is expecting. That somehow the training wheels are off, or I'm doing this all on my own now that Brian Kelly is gone. I'm still going to try to be Tommy Rees, the Tommy Rees that was given this job 2 years ago." So that was pretty interesting. And then obviously Tyler Buchner and Drew Pyne, like I said a little earlier, if Notre Dame's going to have a starting quarterback, it's going to be one of those two guys. So you just look for little mannerisms when you're talking to guys like that. And, I've covered college football long enough to say, okay, yeah, that guy sounds and looks like a starting college football quarterback. And I think both of those guys could have been both of those guys fit that mold of a starter off the field. When you're talking to them, they have the confidence, they're poised, they give good answers. They're not giving 10-word answers to a question that is open-ended and broad. So I thought Buchner was really impressive in that regard. And then Pyne was as well. Look, Pyne is a guy that's been waiting for this opportunity for as long as he's been here. There's always been somebody ahead of him who it looks like is going to start. And right now, for all intents and purposes, that's Buchner. And I know Buchner, this is the first time that it's been somebody younger than Pyne who kind of looks like he's going to start over Pyne. So I think Pyne has this confidence about him right now that says, look, if there was ever a chance for me to start at quarterback for Notre Dame It's this year. So I think he's pretty confident, and that's what I could gather from talking to him for about 20 minutes. I sat with him for 20 minutes, and I enjoyed all 20 of those minutes.
In all my years covering recruiting, Drew Pyne's one of my favorite interviews. That he's such an awesome kid to talk to. Any like talk between with the quarterbacks and Reese about the battle? Like any talk about timeline or how the guys are feeling about it? Anything like that?
Yeah, I was just sitting here before we started this video, and I said, "Man, I should have asked some more pointed questions at Reese because there were plenty of questions about Buchner, about Pyne, what each of them have to do to win, but there were no questions like, "Hey, when you want to name a starter?" or "What are you looking for specifically from?" There maybe was some questions like that, but you always get the cliche answers when someone asks that. We should have asked them, "Hey, who's the front runner right now? Who has the upper
He
hand
would
and
not
why?"
have answered you guys. He wouldn't have given you guys anything clear though.
At least ask the question though, and maybe he roundabouts his answer, sure. But I think that's what everyone is wanting to know because we've spent so much time this offseason just kind of projecting Tyler Buchner as the starter based on what we saw in 2021. But as I'm sitting here in late March, I'm starting to think, well, is that fair to Drew Pyne? Is Tyler Buchner for sure going to start against Ohio State in September? We've still got so many practices to go through until we get to that point. So, what I would like to know, and we're going to have more opportunities to ask Tommy Rees, what are you feeling right now as it when it comes to those two guys, and where do you think this is going?
Some recent injury news: Aiden Kayana Aina, big interior defensive lineman, ACL injury. Very unfortunate for the rising junior from that 2020 recruiting class, 4-star player. Picked the Irish over Ohio State, Florida, other big time programs. This seemed like the year where he could break into the nose tackle discussion with Kurt Heinisch out. Thoughts on that news? With him again, ACL injury, going to be out for the year, we would assume. And what does that interior defensive line depth chart look like?
Yeah, I think this is a bigger loss for him than it is Notre Dame, just being that if there's going to be a year you're going to break out, it's going to be one where you've been in the program for a couple years and you know what you need to do to get onto the field. So this could have been that year for him. But as it relates to Notre Dame, there's still just so many guys there in the interior part of that defensive line who could play. If you leave Riley Mills on the inside, then he's an option. You have Jacob Lacey, you have Howard Cross. Those two guys might be battling for that spot that Heinisch left open. And then you got a guy like Gabriel Rubio, who at this point next year, he could have been in Aiden's shoes maybe and been, a junior that is really looking to get some meaningful snaps. But maybe those meaningful snaps come now as a sophomore. So I really like Gabriel Rubio. I think he's got a great body to plug up holes on the inside. And, if he went through a couple Matt Bayless off seasons now, I think he's going to be even more physically impressive. So I'm going to be looking at him as the spring goes on. And I just think there's a lot of options for Notre Dame at defensive tackle. It's just really hard for Aiden to lose basically a full year. He's not going to be healthy until the end of this year, most likely.
All right, and then just kind of wrapping up, you cover women's basketball for us, Tyler. How about Neil Ivy's Fighting Irish setting a NCAA men's and women's tournament record? Tell us about that record that Notre Dame set, and who do they have next in the tournament?
Yeah, so Notre Dame, first of all, scored 100 points in an NCAA tournament game for the first time in program history. We all know what this program has done, won 2 national titles, a whole bunch of NCAA tournament games. Never have they scored 100 points in an NCAA tournament game, but never has anybody beaten an opponent higher seeded. So Notre Dame was the lower seeded team, 5 seed against Oklahoma, the 4 seed yesterday. Never has anyone in that situation won by as many points as Notre Dame did this week. 44 points, 108-64. They really just blew them out from the opening tip. You have 3 players score 20 or more points. Everyone's talking about Dara Mabry making 7 threes, rightfully so. She scored 29 points, but a freshman, Sonia Citrone, scored 25 points. Maya Dotson, the senior center, scored 20 points. Olivia Miles almost had another triple-double. She had 12 assists, 9.7 rebounds. She had a triple-double in the first tournament game last week. So this team is really firing on all cylinders, playing their best basketball at the right time. And that's a good thing because you've got NC State coming up, a number 1 seed. Notre Dame beat NC State earlier this season, so the Wolfpack are going to want to exact some revenge.
Yeah, Tyler Horka does a great job covering Notre Dame women's basketball. No one covered it better than Loose Emoji, the late great senior editor at BGI. Really appreciate Tyler and the job he's done covering that program, as well as Notre Dame football. Again, folks, hit that thumbs up. Go to blueandgold.com, $1 for 1 year premium access, and we will catch you guys next time.